was in Manhattan. I had just spoken at Google. We were going to go to Vegas after that. And that's where just tears started rolling.
Siphiwe Moyo. Siphiwe Moyo is an author. He's the founder and director of the OBI Institute, Organization Behavioral Institute. He's also faculty in the top business schools in South Africa. Over and above that, Siphiwe is a multi-award winning keynote speaker.
When you pick up your phone and you don't know who to call, that's what happened to me. I felt deeply lonely. I started sabotaging my own success because in my mind, it was very clear to me that the more I grew in my career, the less community I had. I just felt unseen. The person that I was still seeing in the mirror is the speecho. Those guys were not seeing that guy anymore. It's easier to grieve somebody who passed away than to grieve people who are still there, because the mind says you are not grieving, but the therapist says you are grieving. I came to the conclusion that friendship is dead. People want proximity. People want to be seen with you because it will benefit them somewhere. I had compassion fatigue. Remember, I had this blast on Facebook the other time. I was like, I am tired. Don't call me for coffee. Don't call me to do that. I now think of forgiveness as liberating yourself. It has nothing to do with the other person.
Drum roll, right? We need a drum roll for you.
Thanks for having me, man.
Why did you say yes to the invitation, Siphiwe?
Because it's you, because you asked, because of the title as well. I'm intrigued by Beyond the Title. I think we spend way too much time talking about what we do and not who we are. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So Beyond the Title, these are conversations around hurt, healing, and also the truth about who we are and what we're about, right?
Yeah.
And already as we start this conversation, I'm very much aware of the fact that these are not conversations that we ordinarily have on an ordinary day. And hence I was quite intrigued about you saying yes to come into the green couch. So we call this place the green couch, right?
Oh, I remember the red couch. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, Siphiwe, I'm going to jump right straight into my first conversation, my first question for you, which is, who is Siphiwe beyond all these roles that I've just shared with our listeners when we started the podcast, beyond some of the responsibilities that we've spoken about that I've also shared? Who is Siphiwe?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of thinking around my identity and who I am. And for me, the last few years I've actually never thought about who I am and think until about the 2 years. Ordinarily, I would just jump into my work. But I think I've settled with, I'm a child of God. And for me, settling that was a very important thing because, and there's a backstory to that, because I always had an identity of being a church boy and so on. And now I think I lead with, I'm a child of God, because that helps me to know that it is not performance based. So whether I'm doing well or not, my identity stays the same. Whether I'm hurt or going through whatever, my identity stays the same. And I think that has helped me, because I think if you don't settle the identity, well, it is dependent. So you get confidence when you are doing well and you crumble when you're not doing well. And identity settles me. So I am a child of God, finish and clear.
So I'm getting the sense that, because you mentioned, Uti, you only started probably really thinking about this question about who really am I? And you gave a time frame like 2 years ago. Would I be right, therefore, to say prior to the 2 years, you were sort of living in what I would call autopilot, like your default settings?
Yeah, I was living in autopilot about everything in my life. I had never had a reason to pause. Everything in me was autopilot, because I had the same circles of friends, the same things that I do on the weekend. 95% of my friends were coming from the south of Johannesburg, from the same church, from the same everything. And it just took a destabilization of those things for me to go back and say, actually, who am I? Which is interesting, because I think most people will never really question issues around identity until something happens. And that's exactly what happened to me.
So because we're on the green couch, we are going to go there. I'm curious as what is it that made you then pause and rethink about your existence?
I had a bit of an existential, not crisis, but I started having existential questions, Brian, because here am I, a guy who grows up both in Soweto and Orange Farm, and you are growing up and you are doing. When someone looks at the conditions around you, they look at squalor, they look at poverty, and yet I was the happiest I'd ever been. For me, in Soweto and Orange Farm, I was automatically happy. I had great relationships, great church community, great everything. And so at this point, then a few years ago, probably slightly longer than 2 years ago, I moved from the south of Jozi, I go into the north, and you start realizing that, hey man, maybe my friends were actually not friends, were church mates, because you lose proximity and then you lose everything. So one day I'm in Zanzibar. I'm supposed to be having a time of my life from Orange Farm to Zanzibar. So I'm supposed to be having a time of my life, but I feel empty. I feel sad. In fact, my wife says to me, "You've ruined the holiday for everyone. You were grumpy, you were whining," and I didn't know what was going on, and therefore went to therapy. Realized that there's a lot of things I've lost. I've lost community. I've lost friends. I've lost my church community. I'm in limbo. I don't know what makes me happy. I should be happier because now I'm celebrated, right?
Yeah.
Because my
You're on
career,
global stages,
my
right?
career at that time is flying, and that's why when you try to say to somebody, I'm in a bit of a limbo, I'm in transition, they don't get it. But at that time, I started searching and I was looking, and you know, when you pick up your phone and you don't know who to call, that's what happened to me, because my friends, unfortunately, it was out of sight, out of mind, and I felt deeply lonely.
So life brought you to that,
Yeah.
to that point where you now had to ask yourself the hard question: who am I? Right, outside the labels that were there, because here you are speaking on global stages. I remember at some point you even went on an American tour. Wow, right?
did.
Here you are sought after in all these business schools, and yet there is still a side, and there's something underneath that. There's a gap. There's an existential gap that is actually saying there is more, and I need to look inside myself and say, what is going on?
I was in Manhattan, New York City, when I cried for almost 30 minutes because, and this is weird, because these are the things that you think one day I will go to New York and I'll be happy all my life. And so I was in Manhattan. I had just spoken at Google. We were gonna go to Vegas after that. And that's where just tears started rolling, because you realized that how lonely you are, how much community you lost. And for a very long time, I started equating a bit of success with a loss of community, and literally started sabotaging my own success, because in my mind, it was very clear to me that the more I grew in my career, the less community I had. Because it just looked like, oh, okay, people no longer see that guy anymore. I can't relate. And it's not for the lack of trying, right? And so in my mind, I started saying, actually these stages are costing me. Because when people see you on TV, you will relate to this. When people see you on TV and then you come and chill with them and they ask you how you are and you say, it's tough, Jens. They're like, this speech. You know, how can it be tough when you are, I just saw you on TV, bro. So there's a sense where the people you grow up with cannot relate to your pain anymore.
The dissonance.
There's a proper dissonance. They cannot understand. You are an answered prayer to them. You must provide solution. And therefore, there's a time where I just felt unseen. Because the person that I was still seeing in the mirror is the speecho, but those guys were not seeing that guy anymore. They were just not seeing that guy. I would try to laugh, but every time you could see that there's a dissonance. And so that really broke me.
Yeah, and I want to come back to that moment where you say, you start thinking to yourself, this success and this progression is coming at this cost, right? And yes, I'm enjoying it, but also there's a part of you that is yearning for what was and what you had, right? And then, but it's no longer there. You then, there's a shift there. What shifted for you to no longer start thinking that this success has to come with the cross and with the pain that it comes
A lot
with?
of work, a lot of therapy. Because I tried for so long to say, in fact, for a very long time, I tried to prove that I have not changed. And the more I tried to prove that I have not changed,
the more people say you have changed.
People see like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You have changed, right? And so I grappled with it in therapy. And first of all, we had to say, it is not this progression that is, it might cost you a different type of community, but there is a community that still wants to see you. And even when you still go back to Ekaslako, because I was also having survivor's guilt, man. I was having survivor's guilt because the people who were closest to me, life has not turned out well. You know, some of my closest friends, life has not treated them well. And I think for a very long time, I carried that as if I caused it. And I kept trying to go and pull people back at some point. But you just realize that, okay, I need to continue blessing people, but you cannot really save people, right? So when I removed that idea, and it sounds like a line, but the work that comes before that line is just, it was a lot. But I had to realize that, okay, it's really not on me. There is a work that I need to do to work on that survival's guilt, to stop sabotaging my progress in order to shrink back to that level that I worked so hard to outgrow, and lean forward and realize that there is another community, people like you. There is another community that sees me.
It's the burden that comes with being an outlier. When we I look at you and myself, we're outliers of the communities that we come from, right? But I think what is very important, what you're talking about, I think talks to those things that we call self-limiting beliefs. Because poverty does something to us. It even impacts on our thinking, right? And in this case, in your case, what I'm hearing is it impacted on you seeing even the potential that you had, the person that you were becoming, that you were now saying, this is not me, right? And I think the turning point from what you've shared is, in as much as you were in therapy and the work that you were doing with your therapist, the work was around reframing how you saw yourself and the beliefs, which were the lies that you had taught yourself about who you were now, to actually say they're lies and to actually reframe them and actually say, actually, I am deserving of this. It is worthy of that.
Hey, Brian, do you have a tissue here? Because that leg, that identity leg between you've changed levels, but what you see when is not that person. So even when people really recognize what they see, that's not who you see. And that leg between that took me a very long time. And unfortunately, and I think about this a lot, man, because as you know, I was in HR before I left corporate. And I think about the issue of identity leg. You would see it, for example, a few years ago when we promoted something at work, when we promoted somebody at work, there were certain social cues that came with that. So when you became an executive, you would have a corner office. You would change the way you you wear and whatever. And so it registered very quickly to someone, I'm an executive now, and they would act like it very quickly. Now, when you get promoted, for example, you might go back to the same desk that you were in last week. You might stick to the chinos that you used to work because we have an informal culture. So it takes a while for you to get that you've changed levels. And so one of the things that I realized in therapy is that for me, believing that I am this person who is deserving to be in these rooms was a very, very tough journey, And what it does, it was a double-edged sword because the people that I was now with, who are our peers, they felt like I'm rejecting their friendship. And it was mostly because I just felt like I don't deserve. Every time they reach out, I'm trying to pull that Speedo guy, right? I'm like, I'm Speedo.
Your ghetto-ness.
My ghetto-ness. And they can't relate to that. And then there's a bit of maybe Siphiwe does not relate to us. But now I'm rejecting these people, and then the ones that I want to reach out to, they don't see that person anymore. So I was in a bit of a limbo, which was very, very tough to grapple with.
Yeah, and to use your own words, you use the word liminal space, right?
Yes.
Being in that midway,
Yes.
right? And but again, what's coming out from what you're sharing with us here is the power of the mindset.
Yeah.
It's very important. What kind of mindsets do we have at particular moments in our lives, right? Sometimes we can be in a moment where you're in this moment and you were not able to see beyond this, right? And possibly that was that fixixed mindset that
Yes.
I am still that gentleman
Yes.
there. I'm still that spiritual survival, right?
Yes.
And yes, there is an element, it talks to whole issues around identity, right?
Yes.
Yes, part of our identity is that, but you were also becoming, and you getting to accept that
Sure.
seems to have been a challenge.
It was a challenge, man. And even the social cues I would push out to the world were also telling the world that, man, maybe Brian, I don't know if I told you this. My nervous system was just not comfortable in some of these spaces, and I really had to work hard on that.
Yeah. The nervous system is an alarm, right, in the body. It tells us when we feel safe, and it tells us when we are in a threat state. And what it does, it through the body, it gives us cues, right? And it's very important, again, as human beings, just to be able to listen to our nervous system. And unfortunately, as people, we're not socialized, and especially us as black men, we're not socialized in a manner where we do that kind of work, where we're able to listen and to hear the cues that our nervous system gives us, to a point that you are probably not aware of it.
I wasn't.
And you probably found it offensive.
Yeah.
But at the same time, possibly your body was indeed giving those cues, saying that you are not feeling safe. There was no sense of safety.
There's no way they were lying. Because as I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, what is it in me that feels weird and something? I thought I'm
I've
okay.
arrived.
I'm okay in these spaces.
Yeah.
But no, I was hyper vigilant.
Yeah.
And again, back to this idea that my own limiting beliefs, my own sense of I don't belong here. This is a place of work. I must work quickly and then go back to the place where I feel safe. And I think there's a lot of work we need to do to understand these cues that our bodies tell us.
Yeah. So, Siphiwe, with every meaningful life like yours that you've led and have lived, they always come with a component of pain and hurt. Has there been any hurt in your life and in your walk that was quite big and that required also the greatest forgiveness?
Yes, it is totally linked to this one, Brian, to be honest, because I had a really good upbringing, parents trying their best, and so you kind of learn that obviously there is less resources as far as family is possible, but there is love and you do well, and therefore for me the pain and hurt came from this isolation that I'm talking about. I felt really that when I was in my isolation period, when I had to leave the organizations that me and my friends belonged to, I felt like they were on self-preservation mode. They needed to preserve their own status in those organizations, and therefore neglected me and therefore never called me. In fact, people started not being wanting to be seen with me, and I think I'm not interpreting it wrong. So I went into a huge stage of bitterness. It was really, really bitter. And also from the fact that I'm a giver, right? Generosity is a proper value for me.
You are.
So I felt that I have given so much to people in my circles. I don't deserve to be treated like this.
At a time when you need to receive.
At the time when I need them, they're isolating because there's self-preservation, there's politics. You really don't want to make sure that you are seen with this guy. And for me, association. And I'm like, dude, for where we come from, at the time where I feel like this, you're gonna do that. So I was very angry.
Luckily, there was no social media at that time. I'm sure you would have posted on your WhatsApp, "Days are dark, friends are few," right?
I would have done with those
Simbon.
cryptic statuses.
Yeah, that we know you're talking to us, your friend.
I think the main pain came from that. And literally the first session for me when I went to therapy, because I couldn't figure out this thing. What is going on? My life is going well, and I was in denial about the role of community, because I also think it's easier to grieve somebody who passed away than to grieve people who are still there, because the mind says you are not grieving. People are there, but the therapist say you are grieving. You are literally grieving, losing 90% or 100% of your community. So my therapist draws this circle, the I we T, and I we eat, ne?
Yeah, I will eat.
I will eat model, and you must come back to this podcast. Brian will explain it one
We
day.
will at the end.
or now.
Yeah.
And then says, here's the problem, Siphiwe, with you now. Your eye is probably still very good. You are working, you are achieving, you are doing well. You look like you've done a little bit of work, but your we is completely blank. So you've lost a sense of meaning, because again, when I was in Orange Farm, one of the things I didn't think about is that I would do these workshops almost every 2 months, where I call my friends, we call the young people, they're going to talk about learnerships, apprenticeships, this and all of these things that I just thought I was doing them. But when I'm there, it says, you've also stopped doing that, and that was a source of meaning for you. You were changing people's lives, so you were using this vehicle as a source of meaning. So you've lost that part of you. You've lost a big part of meaning. You've lost social connection. You've lost this, but in your mind, you are not grieving because you haven't lost anybody.
You're not even acknowledging it for yourself.
You are not even acknowledging it, because again, I have a huge sense of self-reliance, right? So this idea that I could fall apart because somebody else, I'm like, me?
It's unfathomable.
Do you understand how much I've pushed to get here? I'm self-reliant, So that's what I was rejecting. But I guess moving completely, you lose a sense of meaning, you use belonging, you use a sense of transcendence, that I'm working for something bigger than myself.
Absolutely.
And so your entire system has collapsed. The only thing you are left with is the I component. You still have a family, which is really great, but yeah.
It's like they're pouring into a bottomless pit.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I want to stay with that experience, because I don't think it's just a loss. I'm getting a sense that with the people disassociating themselves with you, there must have been a sense of betrayal.
Yeah.
Talk to that.
Yeah. No, I felt betrayed, man. I really felt betrayed. And again, it's probably because when I pour out a little bit too much. I'm able to hold space for people.
Yes.
So some of those people, I felt like I was their free therapist. I felt like I was their free career coach. Because again, when you do what we do,
correct,
you end up giving some of your gifts to people.
Absolutely.
They didn't ask you. Well, they do ask, but you overextend and you do. Yeah. So I felt so betrayed. I felt like you're gonna do me like this, and I'm not even saying you must publicly show face or whatever. All I'm saying is, what's the reason of completely disassociating with me? What's the reason of not seeing me? What's the reason that we've lost that friendship? So I had to do a lot of forgiveness that people didn't ask for.
We'll come to the forgiveness. I want to still stay with that memory and that experience. What were you thinking about you, and what conclusions did you come to about friendships at the time?
I came to the conclusion that friendship is dead. People just now want networks. Yeah, Johannesburg is just about networks. People want proximity. People want to be seen with you because it will benefit them somewhere. In fact, I just thought about the idea that we have genuine friendships is really, really gone. We are living in times now where there's nothing like that. And I questioned a little bit of myself as um, as a this is why when you asked me about my identity, I was like, I'm a child of God, because these are people that I grew up with at church, right? And so now it messes with your own identity. I was church boy all my life. This is where I saw. So having a pain that comes from a place where you felt safe felt more hurtful than anything else.
It can.
And I felt like, good Lord, I think I can take this in corporate. Maybe.
Yeah.
Because corporate, there's a sense that we're all here to compete and
to get up
money,
the invisible ladder,
proverbial ladder.
Yeah.
So getting it in a space where it's supposed to belong and community felt even worse. And that's why that separation between church boy and I'm a child of God took me so long, and I had to hold on to that because you start thinking, even this religion thing is nonsense, you know.
It's a scam.
It's a scam. I mean, I almost reached that point where like, even this religion thing is a scam, until I was able to separate God from people, until I was able to separate my identity as a church boy to this child of God. Because for me, that's very, very important. And then so holding on to my faith now is no longer automatic. I have decided to hold on to my faith, even when some of the source of my most horrible pain came from people I grew up with at church.
So the brotherhood, which was supposed to be a community or fraternity, is the very same space where you get this wound.
Yeah.
And I think it mirrors what is currently happening even right now in our faith-based communities, right? And that's the truth that we all need to make peace with, to say sometimes our churches are not hospitals for saints, right? And actually they are rehabs for people who are just as broken as you and I.
Yes. Coming to that conclusion helps you as you're grappling with something. But one of the most unspoken things, and it's not fashionable to say this because churches and faith-based communities generally, it's sacrosanct, man. So you feel even bad by saying you were hurt and whatever. And
there is guilt around it.
There is guilt around it. It's a weird space to admit that. And although people can talk about toxicity in the workplace, if you'd ever talk about how faith-based communities can have toxicity, you will be...
The problem is you.
The problem is you, right? And that's where you are isolated even further, ostracized even further, and so on. But where there are human beings generally, and this is where I came to the conclusion, where there are human beings, you are going to hurt each other. In fact, there are probably people that are saying, Siphiwe hurt me as well.
We do.
Because we are human beings. So I had to come to that conclusion.
And just to close out on those whole element of church and communities of faith, I think for me, the greatest liberation for me was just to realize how the church, and I'm using church here in broad sense, is both human, which is the people and the brotherhood, but also to also start broadening my understanding of what church is, not just to limit it to the building or to organized religion, but to realize that there's a divine element to it, which is that our existential relationship with God, the divine and the universe. And then we're able to have maybe healthier forms of spirituality and other than just being caught in the culture of
That is very mature. It's a very mature, and you come to that understanding as a human being. But you will be so shocked at how much, for example, there was this meme that went around the internet. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen, where people started saying, I have not left God, I left church. Our people who are in church and institutions, the way they went after those people, for me, it was unchristlike. It was, why are you going after the people so much? Can't you realize what people are actually saying? People are not really necessarily saying, you can actually do church without God. Probably they can, but what they're actually saying is, I'm hurt, I'm injured, I'm wounded,
I'm excluded.
I'm excluded. And at the time when I am wounded, there is no brother who came to pick me up. That's literally what the cry was for. But people went, they felt like they must defend.
Yeah.
And I don't know of a God that needs defense so much. I really
Without getting into the theology of that, I would go into the psyche of that, which you and I know, by the way. It's the shadow side, because the church is presented as the family. And that's why I get a heart attack when I work with teams and in organizations where we say, we are a family here. And I say, that image is quite unhealthy.
Yeah.
And it comes also with a bit of baggage, because the image of the family, taking the team or even the church as family, ne, it means that there's an unhealthy side of family, the shadow side of family, where we've got that uncle who's fiddling somebody, the toddler in the household, or the aunt who's doing something, and we're all told, look aside and don't talk about it, where we don't have those crucial conversations, right? And where things are kept under the carpet, and we have artificial harmony, and we keep going on because we want to preserve this image. But let's get into the forgiveness.
Sure.
What's your understanding of forgiveness? What is this thing called forgiveness?
I don't know, man, because I think I resonate with the idea that how do people put it? If you that taking poison, do you know that?
But taking poison and drinking it and expecting someone else to die.
Something like that. Because I think the lack of forgiveness really does something to the person. You as the person who's not forgiving. I now think of forgiveness as liberating yourself. I now think of forgiveness as something that is totally devoid from rekindling friendships. You actually don't have to rekindle any friendship because you've forgiven people. I now think of forgiveness as sometimes it's also not part of repair. It's a part of you just accepting that you have this love that you cannot give anymore, and you are grieving that process, and the ability to let go of pain and hurt. That's what forgiveness is to me. It has nothing to do with the other person, because also we don't want to create an environment where people don't take accountability because we want to take accountability away from them. I forgive you, I forgive you. I actually think even when you ask for forgiveness, you must ask for forgiveness and keep quiet, and not expecting someone to absolve you of what you have done, not accepting someone to say, no, it's okay, because it's not okay. When someone asks for forgiveness now, you should just say thank you.
So when I'm saying, I'm sorry, I was dishonest and I cut you out of a certain thing and I ended up with other people, what's that supposed to? Does that mean you should forget it? You should forget it? I should never bring it up in the conversation? I look at forgiveness even in relationships, right? All of a sudden we were saying I do, jiggy, I am in California and I think no, I don't. Right?
Yeah, because people weaponize an apology. The fact that you've said I'm sorry doesn't mean I should forgive you instantly.
Okay.
That is a journey, and that is a journey that the person who has been wronged must decide when they can do that. And I just think if someone says I am sorry, and then they keep on saying, but I said I'm sorry. No, I've acknowledged the fact that you've said I'm sorry, but I'm on the journey of forgiveness, and when I'm ready, I'll let you know. And this is interesting because even the way we parent, because kids these days hold us accountable.
Absolutely.
Our children don't play. If I need to say sorry to my child, I should not expect them to make me feel better by saying, Dad, I forgive you now. Sometimes all they can say is thank you, because the pain was so much that they need to walk through. The aim is always to repair.
So it's restoration.
The aim is restoration. Okay. But I think that takes a journey. That takes someone thinking, okay, I forgive you, but I want to see a behavior change. I want to see intentionality. I want to see you doing something different. And therefore, the forgiveness comes. I think acknowledging that, okay, thank you for the apology should be enough.
Okay. And forgiving self?
Forgiving self is much tougher because I generally think we are kinder to other people than we are to ourselves. And that's why for me, one of the things I've had to grapple with, Brian, is loyalty to others that is neglecting self is not loyalty.
It's not loyalty at all.
It's not loyalty at all.
Tell our listeners why.
Because, there's this framework that I love. Who's that researcher? I think it's Hampshire, who says when people are in difficult environments, whether at work, at home, the home is abusive, or the home is just not conducive, there are certain strategies that people use to cope with this. I think the first one, and if you think about a 2x2 box, now the work part comes in, and you have active strategies and you have passive strategies. Yeah. And some of the passive one is exit. If that environment is no longer suit you, you exit. People call it destructive. And I think I agree that it might be destructive, but sometimes you get to that point where you have to exit. The second one is voice out what you are, the pain that you are feeling. And I think that's a good thing. In a relationship, you should never get to a point where you are not speaking up on the things that are hurting you, because at some point, that's the disloyalty to self that I'm talking about, right? Voicing out is an active strategy and it's a constructive strategy. But the last two are interesting for me because then it's loyalties. Then people sometimes become loyal to the institution of marriage. I'm loyal to the institution that I work in. I'm loyal to the organization, but it causes the last one, which is neglect.
Yeah.
Sometimes you are loyal to the fault. You are loyal so much to others.
To the extended family.
To the extended family, to everybody, and you neglect self. And so for me, balancing that idea of, okay, I'm still committed to stay here, but I need the other person to come to the party. Because if they don't, I am slowly dying. I am slowly neglecting. And that, for me, that's where this idea of being disloyal to self come from, where everybody else is comfortable but you. And many people, particularly people who are other-centered, me, I know myself, I'm others-centered. People who are others-centered, they get to a point where you've given so much and now you are so tired. I had compassion fatigue. I remember I had this blast on Facebook the other time. I was like, I am tired. Don't call me for coffee. Don't call me to do that. And then when I reflect, is that you've neglected yourself so much. You've neglected boundaries so much to a point where you get tired. And I think everyone listening to this, watching this, make sure that you don't become so disloyal to self that you neglect self because of other people.
So part of your healing was self-care.
Yeah.
And we'll unpack a little bit about that self-care. I just want to double click on the disloyalty to self whilst you're being loyal to the other, where we come to the conclusion that it's not loyalty at all. And yet in our minds, there is the lie that it is loyalty.
Sure. Go deeper.
Why is it very easy for us to be of certain things and to have certain qualities towards other people? And we come back to even forgiveness. We can sort of forgive certain things in other people but many of us at some point, and that's why I was trying to just zoom in with you, we do struggle with forgiveness of self, like not because I was bad, but I look back at some of the relationships that I was in and I think, how did I end up there? Like, was I drunk?
Yeah.
What was I thinking?
Yeah.
And I'm mad at myself to actually say, how did I allow myself to be in such a space and in such a condition? Yeah.
What conclusions did you reach?
I was drunk in love.
Acceptance is the first. It's because at our core, we want to both give and receive love. At our core, we want to belong. At our core, we want to be seen. And we must never underestimate, sometimes, especially gents, when I say some of these things, people sound, that's ridiculous, bro. What, dude, let's stop pretending. We are human. You are actually human before you are a guy as well. It's human first, which means you want to be seen, you want to belong, and you must never underestimate the power of wanting to belong.
And those needs,
And
deep
those
needs.
they are so deep.
So deep. And they drive so much of our behaviors.
They drive so much.
And again, we double click on what you're saying for us as guys. We act like those needs don't exist, but they manifest differently in us as men. And they manifest differently, I think, even in women.
Yeah. And I think the advantage of being a woman, is that they express these needs. Tina, we're in denial, man. We are so much in denial about how much we actually need proper conversations, proper deep relationships, which is why I'm now in a space where, like, if we want to talk about football, can it be 5 minutes? Because at some point, let's go deeper.
True.
How are you?
Correct.
And it takes a while for us to get there, because I think generally we don't admit to ourselves that we have those needs. Gents don't admit that they also stay in situations that are not ideal.
Oh, we do.
The gents don't admit that, dude, something is not going right here. I'm also begazelling. And there's an interesting thing in society where people think ladies, women are the ones who are holding on tight, self-neglecting, because they are trying to, I'll use that word again, being loyal to the relationship. But because we are in denial, it hits us even more. And what we then do is we drown ourselves in noise. In spaces where I don't want to hear anything, please let me go a groove. And until 4 a.m., until I can't hear anything, because silence reminds me of all of these things.
Absolutely. And silence is a powerful tool. It's a powerful tool, especially when you are on the quest for self-development, reinventing yourself. And I often challenge even my students in class to actually say, spend 5 minutes in silence as you drive to work. Switch off that radio. But the people that actually protest the most are the men. They don't want to.
They don't want to.
So we are so afraid of ourselves, right? But it goes back. Then you start realizing how those things manifest themselves. It's the extensive drinking, the hyper sexuality, being hypersexualized. There's nothing wrong with sexuality. It's the lack of self-regulation and all the other things that happen. So I go back. I want to go back to your healing journey. So you then make the decision to say, I'm dropping this weight that I'm carrying. I don't want to carry it. So it was a choice and a decision for you.
It was a decision. It was
after you had suffered.
I'm still suffering. Suffering is going to be continual for a while.
Beautiful.
But I think you make a decision to cut certain things and reach out to more, because again, unless you admit that this thing is dead, you will never really enjoy new beginnings, right? Because you're holding on to this thing that is dead. Cutting it is going to bleed. Cutting it is going to hurt. But there comes a point where you can tell that even the way I'm talking, there are a few times where I think I'm still talking from wounds, but there are more times where you're like, okay, I'm talking from a scar now. It looks like there is a bit of healing that is happening, which is continuous.
So what is healing? Because I also work with people, I hear people talk of healing like it's a linear thing, like it's an instant thing. You go to therapy, boop, and the thing. And I'm thinking, it doesn't happen that way.
It doesn't happen like that.
And I've got an aversion towards the word.
Towards the word healing. Actually, I did too. I did too. I think I'm embracing it a little bit more.
What shifted?
because also for me it also sounded way too soft, man. I'm healing. What, you're a guy from Soweto, dude? Where are you healing from?
Yeah.
So it sounded a little bit soft, but I think recovery from deep pain, recovery from deep pain is how I see this thing called healing. I also think it's a lie that it's going to be linear. It's a lie that it's going to be easy, but there comes a point where it doesn't sting as much as it used to. And I think for me that's healing. There comes a point where you can talk about it and you can feel that my throat is fine, because initially it kind of chokes you. Initially you can see there's a lump in your throat when you talk about it. You can tell I'm about to break down, but because you're a guy, you're like, I'm angry. No, you're not angry, you're hurt. But there comes a point where you can talk about something and it stings a little bit more. It will always be there quietly, but there comes a point where there is something when you can talk about it, and you don't feel you don't feel it as much. But another big angle of healing for me is when you can acknowledge the good in the situation that you were in the thing that hurt you so much. Because when you are still very hurt, you're like, there was nothing good about that marriage. This person is terrible human being. You can tell that still stings. But there comes a point where you're like, man, this person was a good father. This person was a this and this and this. You can tell that there's some repair that is happening.
So healing then does not become that thing where, that process where it's in essence what you are saying about healing is it doesn't have a hold over you.
Yes.
And to some extent, the past memory and experience does not control how you are showing up in terms of your language, in terms of your behavior, and in terms of how you're treating other people. Not because the wound is not there, but it's because, and as you've shared in your story, healing for you was now you doing that inner work, that work that you had to do of rediscovering yourself, what is of mine to carry and what is not of mine to carry. But in your story, what I'm also hearing is you're also able to see what your upbringing and all other experiences had produced you, right? And then you also now you're starting to choose about who do I want to become in spite of what has happened and in spite of what is currently happening.
Absolutely. Man, you've summarized it so well. You've really summarized it so well. It's about how you show up. It's about the memory no longer stinging, and you can also tell in your body. For some reason, one of the other things that has happened to me is that I can now hear my body, which I didn't before, because it was always noisy. So I can now tell when I'm sitting in a space and I feel safe. I can now tell when I'm sitting in a space and I'm not hyper vigilant. Initially, I was not present in my body. I couldn't even tell that there's something about this place. When I used to hear people say there's something here, it's
No, it's energy.
It's energy. But
and Gesintu, we talk about imimoya. In faith communities, we talk about spirit. And in this work, it's the energy. So it's the same thing that is just seen through a different paradigm or a different lens, right? And what you are saying is you are so attuned to that now, right? It's amazing that we talk in the work that I do, we talk about the different centers of intelligence. There's what we call the head center, which is the rationality. Then there's what we call the heart center, which is the emotive center. And there's what we call the gut, which is the instinct, right? And it is in that gut, in the belly, where we are now able to now start pick up on energies, right? But unfortunately, it's like muscles. Those centers of intelligence are like muscles. At some point, all of us have them, but there's one that is strong, right? That we've developed strong. Some of us maybe are very strong logically and rationally, which means the other two are like that. And I often use the image of those guys we see at the gym, Boskora, who are big up here, and yet they have like toothpick legs, right? They are overdeveloped here and underdeveloped there. And even as human beings, our centers of intelligence could actually be underdeveloped and overdeveloped, right? And they're barely what I've seen in my work is the center of intelligence, right? That gut instinct, very often in people, it's underdeveloped because people don't want to do the work. And so it's very difficult to listen and to hear or to access the gut. Because what happens is we go through life just throwing debt. There's a lot of junk in there. And so the work that you've done of self-discovery, rebuilding, therapy, whatever it is part of taking out the dirt from that garbage bin, right?
So good.
Because then you start hearing the voice of that center of intelligence.
So good. How many times have you heard people say, he's such an intelligent guy, but he's so bad at relationships?
Of course.
As in such a chartered accountant, how
Of
did I
course.
go into this?
Yeah.
And I think you are here.
No,
mostly.
you are. Yeah. And the challenge that all of us have to have through life is to then start balancing the different muscles so that we don't become like those guys with the toothpicks.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I hear you. Sounds very good. It sounds very good. Sometimes, unfortunately, you are forced by things before you get there. And if maybe someone takes anything out of our conversation is how are you in your gut, how are you in your heart, and how are you mentally? And sometimes when you have good relationships with people, take them out of their heads. And I think so many times in the work that we both do, you can tell someone is here and you're trying to say, no, let's go below the neck. Let's go here. And that's the great space to be in.
And people don't want to do that work. One, because it's hard. Two, because it's the road less traveled.
Yeah.
So Siphiwe, as we come towards the end now, I just want to think about, so what's next? They say legends don't stop.
I have a dream to have such a balanced life because I'm not gonna let go of the objective career success thing, the goals that I want. But now I have serious ambitions of having this great life, but also understanding that you can have deep, good, solid friendships in that life. And the fact that just because there is a certain community that has been sifted does not necessarily mean you are never going to be part of really good friendships now. And so for me, the coffees I respond to, the podcast I respond to is when I genuinely think it's people who move from an abundance mindset, who want to create deep, valued relationships. And so that's the space. I mean, my ideal self now is a happy guy who still continues to bless people with his gift.
Value-based relationships and also legacy, right?
Yeah.
It's not all about ourselves.
Absolutely.
It's about what we need to also leave our mark in the world, in our country, and even in our communities. What that looks like for each and every one of us is different. But there's a responsibility that we all have to leave the world in a better place.
That's so true.
I remember I worked for a certain boss. He might be listening right now. He always used to say to some of the people that are here, don't be a burden, be a blessing.
Ooh, that's amazing. Don't be a burden, be a blessing. To those of us who are too much of a blessing, because even my name is Siphiwe, I was like, giving, remember to be a blessing to you as well. So I now think of it, if others-centeredness is that side, self-centeredness is on another side, you have to understand that there is a dance. You are not going to be fully happy by being selfish. That's not going to happen. You are going to be fully happy by being other-centered and serving. Just don't neglect self in the process.
And the big thing around identity that I'm hearing coming here, where there are multiple identities that we have. And at different times and in different contexts, some of them are even intersecting with each other. And we live out of that. And perhaps just to stop seeing ourselves through that singular identity. I am a father. I remember meeting someone say, I am Siphiwe's dad. And their whole existence is built around being Siphiwe's dad, right? And I think, yes, you are part of it. That's your role, but there is more to you. And what happens when Siphiwe goes to university or when Siphiwe dies? God forbid.
You see, things that hurt the most are things that are linked to our identity. And therefore, if you've always seen yourself as a good dad, if something happens to that, then you are shattered. But the things you care less about, if something happens, you are fine. We are broad human beings. You are not being inauthentic when you are operating from a different identity. We are, I think that's one of the things that all of us now are in a place where you want people to see you, the multi-dimensional view person that you are in, because also people tend to box other human beings.
Wow. Siphiwe, thank you very much for sharing your story with us. Thank you for the generosity. Thank you for saying yes to our invitation. And to you at home or wherever you're listening from or watching from, remember our stories open hearts and our titles will open doors. Until next time, next episode, keep looking beyond the title.